All right. My name is Erin Murphy. I'm the Senate Majority Leader. I'm here with Speaker Emerita Hortman, and we know how to balance the budget. A forecast is, by its very definition, about the future and what lies ahead. It guides us, helping us to know what to expect as we move forward so that we can make good choices and plan for what's coming for the people of Minnesota, the place that we call home. Today is not a day to look backward, but to be clear-eyed about what comes next. Today's forecast tells us that in this present moment, we have a stably balanced budget, we have a surplus, we have a stable economy, and we have the strongest budget reserve in the state's history. It tells us that in Minnesota, we have made sound decisions, we are good fiscal stewards, and we are in a strong position to face what lies ahead. Minnesotans elected us to take on challenges, to tackle hard conversations, and find creative, meaningful solutions. We together have faced worse economic positions in the past. With strong leadership and the contributions of hardworking Minnesotans and the economy they create, we have turned potential deficits into surpluses. But never in our history have we had to do that work up against a president who seems hell-bent on crashing the American economy. Only one thing has changed since the November forecast, and that is the inauguration of President Donald Trump. In the last 50 days, the stock market has tanked and more than 170,000 Americans have lost their jobs. In Minnesota, his recklessness has shrunk our state surplus by $160 million. Trump and Elon Musk are bragging about their chaos. They're causing it, and my Republican colleagues here are standing with him, cheering them on, and in some cases hiding from the public. Trump, Musk, and the Republicans in Congress are threatening to cut $2 trillion in essential services, programs people in every community rely on, like Medicaid and Social Security. Their budget would hurt schools, hospitals, seniors and children, farmers, people with disabilities, veterans, teachers, manufacturers, small businesses, and factories, and could have a devastating effect on our budget here in Minnesota, all to pay for tax cuts for the billionaires. Trump, Musk, and the Republicans in Congress have got to pull their heads out of their asses and get to work for the people of this country. The Democrats here will continue to stand up for all Minnesotans, and we will pass a balanced, equitable budget that does everything we can to protect Minnesotans from Trump's chaos and Musk's chainsaw. Our Republican colleagues here at home need to join us and get real about the threat of this president and his billionaire friends. I call on them to join us in this fight, to fight for Minnesotans, for our institutions, and for our future.
Good there. You don't feel like you're balancing. Okay. Good afternoon. Minnesota is in good economic shape. That's what we're seeing in the current biennium. We have a $3.7 billion cash on hand surplus. In the biennium to come, we have $1.1 billion available to spend on inflationary increases in programs, and then we have $616 million left over after that. Minnesota is in good economic shape after 2 years of Democratic control. But we're already starting to see the negative impacts of Donald Trump's chaos, cruelty, incompetence in Washington, D.C. with the tariffs and increasing inflation and the uncertainty taking a toll on our economy and our state budget. Consumer confidence is plummeting. Grocery prices continue to go up. Experts are cutting projections for economic growth. You can see in the forecast that you just received, GDP is projected to go down. Inflation is projected to go up. Mortgage rates are projected to go up. Donald Trump is wrecking our economy. Manufacturers have reported steep declines in new orders and employment. We know that tariffs will raise prices for Minnesotans and alienate some of our closest allies and trading partners. Just yesterday, ADP reported that private employers added only half the jobs projected in February. Critical federal funding has been frozen. Dedicated public servants have been fired, all thanks to Donald Trump and Elon Musk's erratic actions, creating havoc in the markets, and in the federal government. And this forecast does not account for anything that's happened since February 10th. As the governor noted, at the rate they're going, they'll change their position on tariffs 42 more times. Things have rapidly trended negative, even in just the last week, and it seems like they're promising to make it worse. Today's near and long-term economic forecast is helpful and necessary for the legislature and the governor to put together a state budget that is balanced for the current term and then balanced ongoing. But there are irresponsible cuts that are proposed at the federal level that will swamp everything we've done here. I think you saw they left slide 19 up for quite an extended period of time. You could see in the state budget, $84 billion in revenue comes from state sources and $45 billion from the federal government. If we look out in the out years and we use the non-inflation adjusted numbers, or the inflation adjusted number of a potential $6 billion deficit, $2.4 billion if you don't count inflation, that is just absolutely swamped by $45 billion in federal funding that is entirely at risk under this chaotic administration. Instead of bringing down prices like they promised on the campaign trail, Donald Trump and Republicans in Congress are working to enact trillions in tax cuts for corporations and the wealthy, and they're going to pay for it by slashing federal spending on education and health care for children, families, seniors, and people with disabilities. Thanks to responsible DFL budgeting, we are in good shape. We are looking forward to working on a bipartisan basis to ensure that Minnesota stays in good shape and that we have surpluses in the future as well. Certainly that will take some management as we look at those details. But we are in good shape and we have the highest budget reserve ever. We are going to be, as Democrats, fighting to protect working class Minnesotans. In the last 2 years, you've seen Democrats working together to improve the situation for working Minnesotans and consumers vis-a-vis corporations that exercise excessive power to our disadvantage. We see Republicans fighting to preserve the status quo, where billionaires rig the economy to accumulate more power and wealth. But we'll keep fighting for workers and consumers, and we look forward to working together with Republicans to balance the budget. With that, we will take questions.
How do you legislate? How do you pass a budget with the uncertainty ahead? I mean, would you anticipate being in special session all summer and fall?
Well, I would say we will enact a balanced budget by the time the legislative session is over. And if we have to come back in September and October, if the Republicans in Congress and the president screw it all up, we'll come back in September or October.
We have to balance the budget. It's our obligation. We do it with this forecast in mind. We hope that the Republicans in the Congress change their minds and don't roll over to Donald Trump and do what he is suggesting they should do, because that would hurt the people of Minnesota. But for now, we're going to balance this budget to this forecast, and we're going to be done, knock on wood, by May 19th.
It's been a couple of months now since we got that original November forecast that showed that deficit for the first time. And yes, we have a positive carryover balance projected for this biennium, but I mean, when do you start looking at where to make cuts? I mean, could you increase that carryover this legislative session? What might spending cuts look? Where are you guys looking like at first?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We are, but our caucus has been digging into this question now for many weeks, and there are many places to look in order to balance the budget. And we are going to consider the current agencies, the current budgets. We're going to take a look at things that we've appropriated for but haven't received a federal match, and that we don't anticipate a federal match given the new administration. So we're going through everything with a fine-tooth comb, but our objective is to balance the budget, to balance it out for the people of Minnesota, and to protect Minnesotans, particularly against the harms that are coming our way from Washington, D.C.
There's just two things I would say in response to that question. Number one, the governor has proposed bending the cost curve on the rate at which expenses for disability waiver services are going up in special education. And like he said, he's not proposing a cut. He's proposing to slow down the rate of growth. So certainly we have to look at government programs where the rate of growth is higher than the rate of inflation. But you also referenced the carry forward, and the carry forward is critically important. As Democrats, we're leaving $3.7 billion cash on the bottom line. That's a big deal. Of the $17.5 billion surplus, there's 6.2 sitting around right now available to be used, 3.5 in the reserves and 3.7 in cash. If we can, with the Republicans, next biennium, leave Minnesota in that good of shape, there wouldn't be a deficit in the out years, because the $6 billion number, you have to understand, is a very conservative number because we put inflation back into the budget forecast. Because we used to not include that, and then people would wonder why it felt like we were running very fast and standing in the same place, because we weren't increasing government funding to keep up with inflation. Adding inflation to the general education formula means that each year of the forecast period, funding for K-12 education will increase automatically. And that's important, and that should happen. School districts shouldn't come here and fight really hard just to get 2.5%. So that's a dramatic improvement in the budget. It's a very responsible forecast that we work to make more responsible and more reflective of reality. Peter.
What's happened between November and now seems to be driven by this increased inflation number that the economists are giving. However, embedded in it is the $5.2 billion deficit that was projected in the out budget before Donald Trump took office. So can you speak to that? I mean, I know you did in November, but you can't blame all of the $5 or $6 billion structural deficit on what's happened since Donald Trump was president, when $5.2 billion of it was there before.
Right. And I think that we've all been very clear. What we're blaming on Donald Trump is the difference between the November forecast and the February forecast. When you look at the out years, those are certainly structural issues that we know from a demographic perspective we're going to be affecting Minnesota. We've been talking about this since 2005, my first year in the legislature. We have a silver tsunami. It's expensive to take care of our aging parents. I don't know about you, but I am ill-equipped to have my parents come live with me in my house and take care of them should they develop disabilities or need care. There's a whole system that we provide in the state of Minnesota and that we generously fund in the state of Minnesota to take care of people. That is expensive. As more of them retire and age into that system, it is more expensive.
$1.5 million, $1 billion reserve, the rainy day fund, should be tapped in case of an immediate crisis with Medicaid funding?
From my perspective, that is for a rainy day and not for budget balancing.
What did you mean by which Republicans are hiding, and what exactly do you mean by pulling their heads out of their asses?
The news recently that the Republicans in Congress have been asked not to do town halls in public. That seems to be hiding from the public. From my perspective as an elected official, the voters are the bosses, and we should be available to them. We are, they're not our subjects. We are essentially there to work for them. Regarding like heads out of asses, I will say that as we have been talking specifically about the budget resolution that was just passed in Washington in the House of Representatives, as we have talked about that issue, the jobs that are being cut, the contracts that have been frozen, the response that I'm most often getting from my Republican colleagues is, you know what, they're going to figure that out. That's not a real thing. We don't have to worry about it. It's a distraction. They're going to find waste in Social Security. They're going to find waste in medical assistance. They're going to find waste in Medicare. Those are important programs for the people of Minnesota. And so I think that we have to be clear-eyed and steely-eyed about what we could face. And so to Esme Murphy's question, the 3.5 that is in reserve could come in pretty handy if that budget resolution of $880 billion becomes law and we lose a lot of funding for our state budget here. That would come in handy in that moment, and that's why I don't think it is available for spending right now.
Do the House and Senate bear any responsibility for that $6 billion projected deficit because of decisions you made in the last budget that increased spending by a big amount?
No, that is far beyond the period that we budgeted for. For the period that we budgeted for, there are surpluses as far as the eye can see. Now, this is new information, and we will do what we always do, is we will balance the budget so that what you see in an economic projection, kind of long down the road, further than most states look, will be balanced by the time we leave here.
But structurally, those things carry on.
Absolutely.
Some of the stuff you do in the short term has an impact in the long term.
And that's why we're here now, is to budget for that period. That is our job this session. To budget for actually the 2 years preceding that, but to balance into the tails.
Would it be
you be able to give, sorry, would you be able to give any more specifics on areas that you all are eyeing for potential cuts?
You know what, I'm going to spend a fair amount of time between now and when we announce targets with my colleagues, and we'll keep you posted. By April 5th.
And the House will have budget targets by April 1st. House DFL will put our proposal forward prior to that, then we'll compromise with our Republican colleagues and have hopefully joint targets by April 1st. Thanks, we'll let you talk to the Republicans.